On today's episode of Attention Alba, we'll be speaking with the son of a baseball legend and humanitarian who's a great philanthropist in his own right. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss this special episode. Hello, everyone. Belated happy 4th of July to everybody. Hope everyone had a safe and happy 4th of July. And thanks for tuning in to Attention Alva, the podcast for the American Latino Veterans Association. We're super excited to have you join us for this special episode. I'm your host, Danny Vargas, Chairman and CEO of ALVA. In addition to these podcasts where you get to hear from inspiring guests, we also have a series of webinars where you can learn important information on really important topics. And please keep an eye out for our future events by visiting our website, alvavets.org. We really want to thank our sponsors for these podcasts and webinars: JPMorganChase, PMI, Wells Fargo, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Accenture. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel and our videos and our content and our podcasts. I'm pleased to introduce our guest speaker today, Roberto Clemente Jr. Thanks so much for joining us, Roberto.
My pleasure, Danny. Thanks for having me.
Well, let me take a minute to just make sure everyone is up to speed on you and your background. I'll read your bio. Roberto Clemente Jr. is universally respected philanthropist, humanitarian, entrepreneur, producer, former broadcaster, and professional baseball player. Roberto's father, Roberto Clemente Sr., was the first Latin American player to compile 3,000 hits in Major League Baseball history and was the first Latino to enter into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Roberto Sr. used his platform and immense athletic gift to serve others and devote his short life to helping make the world a better place, something Roberto Jr. has duplicated and taken very seriously. Roberto Jr. utilizes his experience not only as an Afro-Latino, but beyond to leverage his platform to help thousands of others on an intensely diverse array of subjects and today's challenges. He, by the way, also serves on the ALVA Advisory Council. So, Roberto, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
No, Danny, thank you. And thank you for what you do. It is, immense pleasure to be on your podcast, to be able to celebrate you as well because of what you do.
Well, it's my pleasure. And most people that know me know that I'm a huge baseball fan. I grew up in New York, so I'm a New York Mets fan, but I always loved the Pirates. And Roberto Clemente was one of my heroes growing up as a kid. And I brought my shirt today.
There you go.
Recognizes the fact that I'm a huge fan of your dad and what you do. So why don't we just start by just having a conversation about your dad, his legacy, his service in the military. Most people don't know that he served in the Marine Corps Reserves, what he did on the baseball field, but also in the community and serving others. So why don't you just take a few minutes to talk about it? We'll just have a conversation about his legacy and his incredible efforts.
Absolutely. Dad obviously grew up in Puerto Rico, and in 1954, he suffered an accident, actually New Year's Eve in Puerto Rico, on his way to visit his brother, who was actually dying with a brain, cancer. And he almost died that day in a car crash. So when he became a major leaguer in 1955, he was damaged goods, if you will, neck and back pain. That's why, the whole neck movement, that people kind of imitated him, thinking he was, being cool, but he was trying to, get rid of his pain. He went from 1955 to 1958. In 58, he was drafted by the Marines. The Pirates were, for the first time, kind of in the edge to go to the playoffs, and the Pirates kind of sent a message to the wire from the Marines: "Would you please wait until the season's over?" He will report right after the season. They negotiated, and somehow they said, okay, they'll wait till the season was over. That reported right after the season straight to Pirates Island, and I can tell you that was a blessing in terms of how it really changed him physically. He became stronger. And ever since he became a Marine, obviously he got stronger, and that also helped him on the field. So he started really hitting better, playing a lot more games because he was stronger. So he was able to really appreciate the work he was doing for the U.S. Marine Corps.
I had heard a story that he gained like 10 pounds, and that he talked about how his Marine Corps training helped with his back as well.
It did. It definitely did. Actually, ironically, he set the record for pull-ups in training. He it was 54, and it held for I believe around 10 years. And I just found out this past year who broke that record. And very ironically, it was another baseball man, and his name is Dusty Baker.
No way.
Dusty broke that record, and that's those are the cool stories that you hear and you really enjoy when you learn something new that you never knew. And I knew about the record, but I never knew who broke his record, and it was Dusty.
Isn't that wild? And then he was also at Camp Lejeune, I understand.
Kevin June, correct? Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. Yeah, he served up until the 65, which is actually the year that I was born. And I think a lot of change in his life, me coming to the world and where he was at the time of his career. So I think I kind of stepped into to that piece of his life.
Yeah, and I also understand that he says he's not only proud of what he's done on the baseball field and with his family, though he's super proud of his humanitarian service as well as his military service. He was proud of that service.
He was very proud. He was actually always said he was proud to be an American. He was proud to be a Marine. He was proud to be Puerto Rican. And that's why every time that they call him Bob, he said, "No, my name is Roberto. It's not Bob, it's Roberto." So make sure you get that straight.
That's wild. All right, let's talk some baseball. We're right now we're in the middle of baseball season. We get the All Star game coming up. He was at what, a 15-time All Star.
Yes, he was a 14-time All-Star. He actually won 12 straight Gold Glove awards for his defensive play. Won four batting titles. Was the MVP of the National League in 1966. I truly believe that he would have won maybe two or three more batting titles if it wasn't for the fact that a lot of the scorekeepers were kind of, well, if they had a chance to give him a hit or an error, to go for the air because of their biases and what was happening at the time with the color of the skin. So I truly believe by a few points here and there that they took away, he would have won probably three more batting titles. So those accolades nobody can take away, but obviously the major one, the 3,000 hit plateau, where he became the gatekeeper of that 3,000 hit club by ending his career exactly at 3,000. Obviously becoming the first Latino to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown.
Well, and in first Latino inducted into the Hall of Fame, but without having to wait usually that 5 year period before being selected. So that was another incredible, and he was a World Series MVP as well, right?
1971, he became and I believe after the series, after the show that he put on against the Baltimore Orioles in Game 7, the hero of the whole series, and before speaking to Bob Prince in English, he asked to please say something in Spanish. And I truly believe that that moment in time, it was the first time that someone has spoken on live broadcast primetime in Spanish. And he talked to not only his parents and his children, but for the people that spoke Spanish, to hear this tremendous ball player to speak in Spanish really galvanized who he was as a human being, and people really kind of reacted to this day of that moment where they were when they heard him and saw him on TV speaking Spanish.
Oh my God. Well, that and the fact that, I've seen interviews with ball players who would, if they were standing on first and there was a bloop hit into the outfield, and they would think about trying for third base, they would stop, or trying to come around from second base to home, they would stop because they knew he had a rocket of an arm out of right field. I saw one video clip where he had there was a ball way out in right field, and the runner stopped at third because he threw the ball like a strike from deep right field on a one hop to the catcher, and that was just incredible.
He did that constantly. It's too bad that we don't have enough highlights at the time. There was not much TV coverage, right? But I can tell you that the stories from the players that played against him are amazing. They were in awe of his talent, but the that arm, until this day, people say they have not seen that type of arm on the field.
It's unique. It's special. I still think that he not only deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, but I think he deserves to have his number retired. I know that's a challenge with the climate right now, but number 21 really ought to be retired in baseball, in my humble opinion. Is it true that he picked the number 21 because that's the number of letters in his name, Roberto Clemente Walker?
That is exactly why he chose it. Little it could have been an omen, right? A great omen because that number is very powerful, and it happens to be 21 letters in his name. So it really became a really good number for him. Two plus one also is number three, and three has been a very unique number throughout his life. Very mystical number throughout his career. Talk about 3,000 hits. You talk about he played at Three River Stadium, the city where you get the Three Rivers meeting right there at the point on the point. I had three sons. I mean, you go down the whole list, and three. His sister, by the way, who he was born because of her, and she passed when she was 5 years old, and dad was only a baby. And but she continued to appear throughout his life with three coins in her hand, three gold coins to give him throughout his life. So three has been a very mystical number throughout his whole career.
That's incredible. That's wild. And you mentioned uh, Pittsburgh and the stadium. I had the pleasure of visiting the stadium a few years ago, and what a beautiful stadium! And the statue that they have to your dad out front is really inspiring. And the bridge as you're leading from downtown to the stadium also his has his name. So I think the city of Pittsburgh has done a pretty good job of recognizing his legacy as well.
Absolutely, and it's amazing the amount of jerseys that you see Clemente in the back of children, of adults, like crossing the Clemente Bridge towards the ballpark, and that love affair with Dad is still alive, very, very much alive here in Pittsburgh.
And beyond Pittsburgh, all of baseball has cemented the Clemente legacy as well in a couple of different ways. Number one, the Clemente Award that baseball has for community service every year, and then also commemorating September 15th as Roberto Clemente Day in baseball. I had the pleasure. I don't know if I told you this that last year on September 15th, the Mets invited me to be the veteran of the game on Roberto Clemente Day, and it
Oh
was such an
wow, I didn't know
incredibly
that. No.
moving. Yeah, it was super moving, super emotional. I felt like a little 8 year old kid, but it was such a special day because your dad was such a hero to me growing up.
No, that's fantastic. That day and a lot of the players, every team really on September 15th is named as a nominee for the big, award that is given out at the World Series. And every player is deserving, obviously, from every team, and only one gets the award. But we need to highlight all those players that are doing great community work and service because they all deserve that award. And everyone that has won it is actually for them is perhaps the biggest award that they have received. That's including MVP and World Series and so forth, because I believe they want to be known more than a baseball player.
Absolutely, and that's such a special way to be able to recognize his community service. And if we can talk a little bit about his community service, I'll start with a little anecdote. A few years ago, I was at a theater in DC for the Hispanic Heritage Awards, and they were doing images on the screen of different luminary Latinos and so forth. And I had to get up to use the restroom. So as I was on in the aisle walking up to exit the auditorium, um, the usher lady, an African American woman, was looking over my shoulder, and she looked up at the screen and she said, "Oh, look, Clemente." And I turned over my shoulder, and I saw on the screen a picture of your dad, and I was like, "Yeah, he's huge. He's one of my heroes." She said, "Well, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and when I was a little girl, we would go to the stadium, and Clemente would give out candy to us kids." And she still remembers that to this day. It's I get choked up just thinking about it. That this woman in D.C. who grew up in Pittsburgh still remembered your dad for his kindness to the kids around the stadium. So talk, if you would, about that is just one small example of how he would touch the community. Uh, Tell us a little bit more about how he served the community.
He gave so much of his time. I remember there were sacks of mail, U.S. mail coming into the ballpark, to the stadium. Excuse me. And I remember the sacks right next to his locker and him going through opening letters. But I remember one of the things that he would do, he would look at a schedule he had on his locker, and he would like take some of those mail and put it under his leg on the bench, and he would continue to put in a whole stack of that mail. Little that I found out later is that he was taking mail from the cities that he was going in the next road trip,
Oh
and
wow.
hand deliver those to those people, to those kids in the hospital or their home. They would knock on the door, show up at their door, and actually sign and hand deliver those letters to those kids. That was very impactful. That you have this man, instead of getting that autograph in the mail, he showed up to those hospitals to visit. I did speak about the accident that he suffered in '54, and because of that, he really started learning about his body and how he could heal his body. Um, he befriended and started learning about chiropractors everywhere in every city that he went to. If it wasn't for chiropractors, I don't believe that he would have been able to play at the level that he played. So he himself became a chiropractor. People knew that he could actually help them. So people would show up at the house at crazy times at night, knock on the door, dad would open the door. And I remember because I would be sneaking out of my bed and start watching people coming into the house with wheelchairs and crutches. And mom would go pick up a whole bag that dad had in the back with electric massager and teas for be able to hit those pressure points in your vertebrae. And he would lay them down right there in our living room, and he would work on them for 1, 2 hours, and the people would be coming up with no pain and walking out and trying to pay him money. I said, no, no money, just go and just take care of yourself. So he healed so many people that people would have, no idea how he would go to hospitals. Administrators would call him, Roberto, I have a patient here that might need your help, but it was all secret because they didn't want to get in trouble. So mom would stand in the outside of the room, and dad would go, and if someone had issues with their back, to have back surgery the next day, the last resort they would call dad, and dad would show up. And actually the next day it was a miracle. I have no pain. They send me home. I don't need back surgery. So there were so many stories of that nature, how he really was able to impact so many people's lives.
Wow, that's incredible. Um, and then there's also, I mean, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. I mean, the humanitarian effort that took him from you all and from us way too young, and that was the relief effort to Nicaragua in New Year's Eve, 1972 to 73. Um, you were a little kid, but do you have any memories at all
Well, I
of
have
what led
many
up to it?
memories. I listen. Danny, I can tell you that I can feel as if it was yesterday, because I believe God gave me the ability of remembering so many things even prior to that, years before then. But I remember our parties at New Year's at the house, and I woke up excited because I knew Our friends were flying in to Puerto Rico, and we're gonna showing up, we'll be showing up at the house. Um, and I remember waking up that morning and getting to the room and touching the bed because it was dark. Mom would put stuff on the window so Dad could rest his eyes. He suffered from sleep apnea, from insomnia, so he didn't sleep well at night. So they weren't there, and I opened the other door and I see them at the dining room table, and I start walking towards them.
Hmm.
Mom gets up, she also see me, but when I get to Dad, I remember instead of saying bendición and good morning, um, I, a message came out that Dad, don't get on that plane because that plane is going to crash.
Oh my God.
And you know, he said, "No, I'll see you when I get back." And I said, "No, Dad, that plane is going to crash." I had no knowledge. We had no knowledge that he was going to be on a plane that night, that day. It was supposed to be that day. And so many things happened that it ended up being at nighttime when they left. But um, that was a message that came from I don't know where. My first premonition. I've had many after, but that in particular, uh, because I didn't do enough to um, stop him from getting on that plane. That traumatic event for me was devastating. I felt guilt for most of my childhood and my adult life because I didn't do enough to
Oh my
knowing
God.
that the plane was going to crash, and obviously, I had to deal with that every day of that loss.
Well, I think, a lot of us veterans can understand that survivor's guilt. Absolutely. But, it's just such a testament to how he lived his life, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm paraphrasing, but he would say, if you're not doing everything you can to help others and make the world a better place in your life, then you're wasting your life. Words to that effect. Is that right?
That is correct, and and that's how he lived and how he died. His, obviously, and I can tell you that the more I thought about it, and I remember I was speaking at a college and I came out and I was walking down the corridor and I hear a lady's voice talking to me. Take, for example, Roberto Clemente. So I stopped to hear what she was going to say. She had no idea I was listening.
Hmm.
And she said, take, for example, his heart, his goodwill, how he died. I mean, his heart was so big that it did not belong in a cemetery. Actually, he went in the water to be able to spread his goodness all around the world. And for me, it helped me a little bit to kind of see it that way, but also understanding that the way he lived and died really serves as an example. That day we lost a baseball player, but a legend was born, and being able to really leave a legacy such as his, um, I believe was part of his mission of being here in life to be able to be recognized as someone that gave it all, and that we all should, you know, really emulate
Hmm.
how he lived his life, and that's something that I believe I'm very proud of.
And it wasn't just service. He also was an example, right? He because of his baseball prowess, he was an icon, but he also was very proud of the fact that he was Puerto Rican, that he was Latino, that he was black, and he made it a point to um, say that discrimination is wrong in all of its forms. And is it true that he got to meet with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
They spent some time in Puerto Rico. They spent some time at our farm in Puerto Rico. They actually spent a lot of hours that I wish that we had a fly on the wall to hear these conversations.
Or
But I,
camera?
yeah, yeah, camera, exactly. And I can tell you that obviously it was a confirmation of his beliefs and his beliefs of fighting injustice and being able to really connect with Dr. King was very powerful moments for him and really cemented his work in the civil rights movement, and that is something that you know took him to when the Dr. King was assassinated. It took him. He was the one that stood up and said, "We're not opening." It was opening day that year, and he actually stopped Major League Baseball from opening day for a couple of days out of respect for Dr. King. So he said, "I am black, I am Puerto Rican, but the respect that this man deserves, we should not be playing baseball." And that's what he did. So he was obviously someone that would speak out um, whenever he saw it necessary, and including the work that he did here, even here in Pittsburgh, and understanding how volatile the society was at the time, being able to really sit down and have conversations, understanding both sides, and Black Panthers and so forth, being able to
Mhm.
really help with the movement, if you will.
And he wasn't the first Latino in baseball, but he was probably the first Latino star in baseball. But he also, as a proud Boricua and a proud Latino, didn't like how the media and the press would sort of make fun, right?
Well, they would actually quote him phonetically. They would write phonetically on the newspapers, and he had a problem with that. And
Yeah.
people thought they would portray him as a not a very smart individual, which it was the contrary. That was a very, very smart individual to the point that he was a key part of you know, starting the Players Association. And he was the first player rep that was voted in by the whole league of players. So they thought that he would be the right person to be able to be standing in front of the league, representing them. That was an amazing visionary. He was the first player to ask for deferred payments. He negotiated his own contracts. He negotiated to bring to the Caribbean PPG paints
Wow.
for vehicles, for example, and have the franchise for the whole Caribbean. He became a spokesperson for Eastern Airlines, Panasonic, Gatorade, Alcoa. So I mean, he was a well-rounded person. Not to say he was also a poet and a musician and make ceramics. So he was a Renaissance man, if you will. But yes, he was someone that was very smart, but he really had a very tough time with the media
Yeah.
and a volatile relationship with them where he stopped talking to some of them for the rest of his career. He said, "I'm not talking to you anymore because of this." And he was right. It was, but they had to come in and ask him because they had no choice. They was the star of many of the games that the Pirates had, so they had to go talk to the star. So they would have to come back to him. And at the end of his career, people started recognizing that he was not that a dumb Puerto Rican. He was a very smart man.
He was a very smart man. And you talked about the phonetics. Didn't they, the media, wouldn't they like spell out heat?
Yes, HEEEET, right there. So yeah, so
That's
he was
wild.
and Myron Cope did a Myron Cope. I remember writing an article in Sports Illustrated, and there was a picture of that, or it was a drawing of that with a line item on all the ailments that he suffered, right? And he took that very personal because Myron spent like a week or so at the house in Puerto Rico and was able to, so be able to talk to him and have that relationship. But then he turned around and put Clemente on this whole page with bad neck, bad back, and broke scraped his knee when he was in high school, whatever. So it was a whole thing, the whole from top to bottom. Ailments and so he took that personal. He's like, okay,
Yeah.
so you're not talking to me anymore. So
That's good for
yes,
him. Good
yes,
for him. And you're right, he was smart. I mean, so he was what, youngest of seven kids, right?
correct.
your grandfather, I guess, worked at a sugarcane,
Yes, he was a foreman for the yes for the
and
sugarcane factory.
he would go out there and help in fields and help load trucks, right? Help the load.
He would go and take the lunch. He would carry the lunch there, and he would help any way he can to earn a cent. Yeah, he would take a cent and would keep it, and he wanted to buy his own bicycle. That's how he bought his bicycle, working. But he would also take a few of those cents and go in the trolley to San Juan to watch the Negro League players in Sixto Escobar Stadium in San Juan. And every night he would go climb up a tree to look into the field and watch them play. And that's how he became a big fan of Monty Irving,
Hmm.
Hall of Famer, Negro Leaguer, a right fielder, and he would look up and kind of have a conversation with Dad. But one day, Monty saw him outside of the ballpark, and Monty gave Dad his bag to walk in for free.
Wow.
So Dad walks in, he carries Monty Irving's bag into the stadium, and Monty opens the bag inside the stadium and hands him a glove. So he now has a glove for Monty Irving, his idol, right? So that's his real glove, like, you know. So it's a part of his mystical, life. So fast forward, he has a career in Major League Baseball, and because of that waiving of the 5-year waiting period to go
Right.
into the Baseball Hall of Fame, he was inducted into Cooperstown with his childhood hero Monty Irving the same day, same
Oh my
class.
gosh. That's incredible. That is kismet. That's fate. El
Yes,
destino.
yes, indeed, indeed.
So not bad for a kid from Carolina.
No, not at all. I mean, I think he truly he knew he always said that he was that God put him on earth to play baseball, but he took that as a platform to be able to make a difference. And that's why 50 years plus, we're still talking about what he left us as a legacy. We're still talking about the strong legacy that we're very proud of.
Well, we all know him as the humanitarian, as the baseball legend, as the advocate for justice and civil rights. But you knew him as dad. So why don't we talk for a little bit about your upbringing? You're the oldest of three sons that he had, and tell us about your mom and that environment that you grew up in Pittsburgh and your career. So let's hear about that part of it.
Well, I can tell you, um, we always say that we're very proud to have had a fantastic father, but very lucky and fortunate to have the mother that we had. And mom always told dad, "Don't speak like that," because dad always told her, "Listen, Vera, I want you to sit down because I'm gonna die young." And you're gonna, you're beautiful. You should get married whenever. And she says, "Don't ever say that, Roberto. Don't speak. Don't say." But the day after, the weeks after the accident, um, they had a meeting for Sports City, which was they incorporated together,
Mhm.
and she continued to carry that torch until the day she passed. And she was still married to my father until the day she passed. And we're so proud that he picked the perfect woman to be the mother of his children because her grace, we were so fortunate that, we have both parents that have left a fantastic legacy. Because of that, we were able to learn by her example how to give, and that's what we do. It's our nature. It's our organic thing that we do. It's actually when people need help, we're there actually to a fault, really. As a detriment to herself, she would help and give everything that she had, and that was her. And we're so proud that we have that second legacy as with our mother that we are still recognizing today and continue to do so.
Well, that's great. So you got to spend your first, was it 7 years?
7 years. Well, 7 years we go back and forth. Pittsburgh will be summertime, and then we will have to go back to Puerto Rico to go to school.
Mhm.
So starting August, we will be back in Puerto Rico,
Gotcha.
but we spend all the summers in Pittsburgh, so it will be a dual back and forth. Even after the accident, Mom bought a home here in Pittsburgh, so we will still come to Pittsburgh, and we grew up going back and forth. So for us, Pittsburgh is our second home. The
Mhm.
relationship here has been, I mean, it's just like Puerto Rico. That's where I believe I live here now, and I think that I can help a lot from all the technologies and efforts from this side, being able to send information to Puerto Rico and my brothers who are both are there. Being able to help from here, but go back and forth as much as I can.
And Pittsburgh's such a cool city. I really like Pittsburgh, and I assume you've got your favorite pierogi place too. And
Yes, no, listen, and I remember I came to Pittsburgh when I was 6 weeks old, right, for the first time. But I remember coming back and forth, and you could not, when you cross the tunnel, for people that know Pittsburgh, and if you don't, you gotta come to Pittsburgh. But coming through the tunnel at nighttime for the first time, and you see the city right in front of you, that's very impressive, right? But way back when, you come through the tunnels and you could not see anything, not even the bridge. That was how smoggy and the smog was
yeah.
so thick, you couldn't see anything. So it has cleaned up very well. It's been a fantastic turnaround after they closed out all the steel mills, and now it's a all technology and food and arts. So it's a very very unbelievable big town. If you I don't call it a city, I call it a big town.
So Pittsburgh and Puerto Rico, you go to school, and you became a ball player yourself.
Yes, I was signed by the Philadelphia Phillies, which is actually people say that why were you signed with the Phillies, right? I went to college. I started going to college in Manatee Junior College, and I lived in Pirate City with the Pirates.
Mhm.
But I was going to college, right? So I would come home and hit at night, and Branch Rickey the third
Wow.
was in charge of the player personnel for the minor leagues. So he would call me to his office, mad at me because I would be hitting at night after I would come home from college, and some of the players will come out of their rooms and start hitting with me late at night. So
Mhm.
he didn't like that. So I would continue to tell him, listen, you talk to your players because I am not your property. I'm not signed with the Pirates. I'm a free agent. But there was a report done on me by the Philadelphia Phillies when I was 14 years old. And I went home for a break, and the scout sees me, say, Roberto, what are you doing? "Oh, I'm here for a break." And he goes, can you do a tryout tomorrow? So I say, yeah, sure, I'll go try out and do a practice. So I did a practice. He says, man, you look good. You're ready. So he calls the Philadelphia Phillies general manager. He flies down 2 days later to do a tryout. They see me, they do it, and they sign me. I was 18 years old.
Oh my.
And they took me away as an 18-year-old. I had no business, in hindsight, I had no business standing at 18 years old. But it was something that I wanted to do as a young kid, uh, become a professional baseball player, earn my own World Series rings, that I would look at them as a kid at dad's trophies, the 1960 and 71 World Series, and I wanted to earn my own. And
Mhm.
I said, well, I'm on my way. I signed as an 18-year-old and spent a couple of years with Philadelphia, then San Diego Padres in '86, got hurt. It took me three knee surgeries in 3 years to get back into baseball. Um, I returned 3 years later with the Baltimore Orioles,
Mhm.
and Frank Robinson was a manager at the time.
Mhm.
I had a AAA contract, and he says that we got another day, one more day, and now you're looking good. I was in the balance. I could be going out to the majors, breaking camp that year, um, and I woke up paralyzed from the waist down. So I went to dinner. I came back to the hotel, and I remember turning on the TV. The Nutty Professor, Jerry Lewis, was playing,
Hmm.
I watch the movie, I turn it off, and I wake up with no legs from my waist down. So that in itself was the end of my career. I had herniated two discs. They bulged in 13 days without legs. I missed my the rest of the spring training, and that was my end. So that was a tough one for
I,
sure.
that's awful. Um, but you still went on. You still loved baseball.
Absolutely. I mean, I think because of that, I it took me a while to get out of bed when I got home. I was actually depressed. I worked so hard to get back. And a buddy of mine kept on calling me, and he had a American Legion team he was
Hmm.
managing, and he was asking me for help. He said, "No, I want you to come." And but one day he said, "I need your help." And when he said that, that immediately hit my brain. What's going on? What do you need? I need you to come and help me. I said, "Okay, so let me check it out." And somehow I inherited the team. He left, and he left me the team. And that really took me out of that the depression.
Right.
It took me back into baseball, into coaching, into managing. And that's when I really realized that for the rest of my life, I will be talking and talking and trying to impact the life of young people because of my experience with that team and how I was able to take 17 out of 18 of those teenagers
Hmm.
out of criminal activities. I had
That's
no idea
awesome.
they were all criminals, and it's a long story short. I thought that's a long story, but they were all well after I got a hold of them. So that in
That's cool.
itself showed me that I was able to impact kids of that nature, and that's where I'm at today.
And you did broadcasting as well.
I was lucky. I was very fortunate, even though it was not your team, Danny. It was the Yankees. I became a broadcaster in 1997, which was great. The year after they won in '96, and was lucky enough to be there with a big team through 2001. I was also doing ESPN Deportes at the time, so I stayed with ESPN Deportes for several more years, and very fortunate. I've been able to really do a lot of things. I always say that I am like a Forrest Gump. um, my life has been pretty amazing and a lot of great stories, but I have reinvented myself so many times, and the experiences have been absolutely fantastic.
Well, let's get back to Pittsburgh because I had the pleasure of visiting the Roberto Clemente Museum and seeing a lot of the things that you've described, not just baseball, but what he did in the community, his family, etc., his military service, and the image that everyone thinks of when they think of your dad is the image of him with the it appears like wings behind him, right? Because of the clouds and so forth. Do you want to take a minute to talk about the museum and help make sure people know that it's something that they should visit?
Absolutely. I call it ground zero, a Clemente ground zero, because if you come to Pittsburgh, you must go visit the Clemente Museum. It is a special place. It's an old firehouse that Dwayne Reeder, who's actually the founder and executive director, he's a photographer. He's a professional photographer. He bought it for his studio, and in 1994 we came up to unveil the statue at the All-Star game at Three River Stadium. And Mom had met him in Puerto Rico when they sent him to do a calendar, and because of that, the relationship started with him. And he fixed some pictures for Mom, and her reaction was like, "Well, I need to get some more Clemente pictures." And that's how he started collecting negatives and buying negatives. And we had a party for the All-Star game, and he kind of put some pictures around the firehouse. And Mom walked in, and she goes, "Wow, Dwayne, this looks like a museum." And that moment for him was a catalyst, like a
Yeah.
museum. Wow. And that's how he started this journey, and it has become an unbelievable journey. I believe Dad, like I said, I call him a Renaissance man. Dwayne is the same way as an artist, and he has really, really captured that's life in at so many levels in this place. If you're a Clemente fan, if you're a baseball fan, even when you're not, people that are just going in with a spouse, they become Clemente fans when they come out because of the stories and the tours and the stories that they will be able to hear, the images, the correspondence that you'll be able to read. Um, his bats, you can touch his bat. I mean, there's so
Hmm.
many things, cool things that happen in that place that are very magical. And one thing that is pretty cool is the fact that in 1927, the Yankees came to play the Pirates at the World Series.
Hmm.
Babe Ruth was at top of his game. People were swarming the William Penn Hotel where the Yankees were staying, and Lou Gehrig decided to leave the hotel, sneak out of the hotel because he wanted the commotion, called his friend who became a firefighter at that firehouse and spend the series. That's where he spent the nights in Pittsburgh in that firehouse. Ironically, Lou Gehrig and Dad are the only two members of the Hall of Fame that the five waiting period was waived. So
Wow.
the connection is there as well in that building. But it's an unbelievable building. And to top it off, there's another section of what they do in the building in the basement. Dwayne Reeder has become a winemaker,
Yeah.
and I remember the first time he made the wine, it was horrible. It was like tar. It was just very bad. But he has become very good. His wines are very now top notch and being rated. And downstairs is a very special wine cellar
Yep.
with barrels of a lot of the players buy their barrels and companies buy their barrels, and it's a very unique place. And I invite anyone that is going to be coming to Pittsburgh to take a look at PNC Park, which is actually, I believe, one of the best ballparks in Major League Baseball.
It's
Being
beautiful.
able to enjoy the park, the museum, it's a special, unique experience, to say the least.
It's awesome. Yeah, and I did try the wine, and it was very, very good. Um, so you were able to inherit from your dad not only your athleticism, but also that spirit of giving back and community service. I know you've done so much humanitarian and philanthropic work throughout your career. So why don't we just go through your career a little bit, both professionally as well as in the community? Just after broadcasting, you've also had some business adventures, right?
Listen, Danny, I can tell you that I've worn many hats. Even when I was doing the Yankees, I actually got my real estate license in New York, commercial real estate license in New York City, which is
Wow.
actually amazing and a great accomplishment, if you will, if I'm doing two things at the same time. But I can tell you that, we all have different traits. Luis and Ricky, my brothers and I, have different traits of our father, right? And Luis is a musician, he plays by ear. My interest has been always technology. Dad was a innovator. He was actually ahead of his time when it came to different technology and health and wellness things that he could get better. And I've became a guinea pig for different technologies that I would like to try and uh, be able to promote for the wellness of people. And that has been my passion for many years. 11 years ago, I used to give you context of one of the technologies. 11 years ago, I was treated in a brain clinic in Dallas, Texas, and it
Hmm.
changed my life. At the same time, I learned about a kid that had passed here in Central Catholic in high school. He was 16 years old, and he had suffered a brain injury at a football practice. He had a slow brain bleed. This happened on Tuesday. They took him to the hospital. They did tests. Nothing showed. But then on Friday, he passes away.
Oh my God.
Um, and that tragedy was a catalyst of starting to look for ways of that never happening again to a young child. And we were able to partner with University of Texas Arlington and Dr. George Kondrasky to create some algorithms to be able to have now a technology that would be able to set a baseline for our brain performance.
Hmm.
And we were able to do that. And, once talking to Climas Carlos, and we decided to name it uh, the RC21X, Roberto Clemente 21X as their script. And that helped NFL players in the settlement case being able to figure out where their baseline was and performance and so forth. But now it has grown. We have a Roberto app, but it's also now being layered with new technologies.
Hmm.
And the last one that's going to be layered later on this year is the one for suicide prevention, which is actually we're very proud of. But that journey for me, in terms of being able to go into that space and learning how to kind of identify different technologies that I think are going to be very powerful and in the innovation space to help people has been a blessing to me. And this is where I live now. It's actually in that technology space, trying to figure out um, non chemicals. I mean, no drugs, but holistic ways of being able to get better and be able to really engage with the information gathering and people to understand that they can actually get better without drugs.
Wow, you've got a lot going on. So between that and, of course, serving on the ALVA Advisory Council, tell us what else you've got going on that we should know about.
Well, we're excited. We're pushing right now to get a new documentary, a Clemente documentary out, uh, which is actually very exciting. I believe documentary was very well made. It's time for it to come out. Also, I'm very happy. July 15th, I helped produce a short episode of Xavier, for PBS. So that's premiering on the 15th. Xavier Riddle. But we're excited about the documentary. We're excited about Teton Ridge and the movie for that people been waiting for over 50 years to be done. So we're crossing our fingers that within the next couple of years we'll be able to see that in the big screen because it's time. I believe it's time. We see so many different stories they're great stories, but this one in particular, I believe, will be of great impact and inspiration for a lot of people.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that story needs to be told. I think his legacy needs to be enshrined, not only in baseball, but or the United States, but also across the world. I mean, I saw 42, Jackie Robinson, the movie. That was incredible. That was phenomenal. But we need to have the Roberto Clemente story enshrined as well. It's such an important legacy. And the work that you and your family are doing is so incredibly important as well. I know you're involved with Grupo 21 as well to try to get more Puerto Ricans involved in government service. You've got a lot going on. Why don't we take a minute to see if we can let people know if they wanted to learn more about your dad and his legacy or your work that you have going on? Are there websites that people can go to?
Absolutely. For myself, RobertoClementeJr.com. For the foundation, you can go to RobertoClementeFoundation.org and find information there. Be able to take a look at the clinics and where we're going to be next. We'll be at the All-Star game with the clinic. We'll be actually right after. We'll go to New Mexico on the 18th. We have quite a few clinics going out, and another thing that we're working on. It's a new technology through the Roberto app, University of Pittsburgh, and so many other universities with sickle cell, and so there's a lot more that not only baseball, but it's about life and being able to really through innovation make a difference.
Awesome. And then you've got stuff going on in Puerto Rico too.
There's in Puerto Rico. We have also. I mean, from the December clinics, but we are actually engaging with the new phase of Sports City, which we're very, very excited about. So, I mean, there's so many, but you'll be able to get that information at the Roberto Clemente Foundation.org.
So before we wrap up, I just want to give you take 30 seconds. I'll give you this full screen to yourself so you can just share with the folks your thoughts on your dad and his legacy so that people can remember that the greatest Latino baseball player of all time, one of the greatest humanitarians of all time, is something that we should be honoring, recognizing, and always remembering.
Well, Danny, Dad left a great legacy. He lived by his quote: anytime you have an opportunity to make a difference in this world and you don't, then you're wasting your time on earth. That is actually something that I truly believe um, is still resounding. And every time we see his image, someone that we're never going to see old. We see a very young 38-year-old standing at second base, tipping his cap, proud of being Puerto Rican, proud of his accomplishment of hitting 3,000 hits, but most importantly, representing not only Puerto Ricans, but all minorities, anyone suffering from injustice. Being able to take the time to understand what the problem is and see what you have in your power to make a difference is all we need to do in life to be able to help our brothers and sisters. I always say that we're all come from the same place. The only thing that separates us is actually geography. But at the same time, this right here, take a look at what we have right here, which is actually your fingerprint. Anything that we touch in a positive way. Just like my father did. He left a great fingerprint and mark on the game of baseball, but most importantly in society. So make sure that whatever we touch in a positive way.
What an incredibly powerful message, and what a way to be able to wrap up our conversation on your family's legacy, your dad's legacy, and everything that you're doing to leave a mark as well. Roberto, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you for serving on the advisory council for the American Latino Veterans Association.
It is my pleasure, Danny, and thank you for what you do, for all your work that you do. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And then, everyone, on behalf of the American Latino Veterans Association, thank you all for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the content. Please join us for future webinars and podcasts. Please keep an eye out for information on upcoming events by visiting our website, alvavets.org. And please also continue to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again to Roberto for being our guest today. Thanks to our sponsors for these podcasts and webinars, JPMorganChase, PMI, Wells Fargo, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Accenture. Thank you all for joining us. And as always, be safe, aim high, and thrive. We'll see you next time. Thanks again.